Megan Burke.
I'm Jasmine Beach Ferrara,
We're married.
and we live in Asheville, North Carolina. And tonight we're just talking about the proposed anti-LGBT amendment, which is going to be voted on in Raleigh next week. This is a really terrible, extreme amendment that's based on bigotry and is politically motivated. And we're going to talk about a couple of the reasons why we oppose it.
That's right. Well, one of the first things we want to talk about is that the amendment is redundant and it's an unnecessary use of the legislature's time and resources. There's already a statute, the Mini Defense of Marriage Act, that means even though we're legally married, we had our ceremony here in North Carolina, but we were legally married in Massachusetts, which is recognized in pretty good number of states by now, and North Carolina does not recognize our marriage. So, like for example, we file our income taxes separately as individuals, which means we're forced to basically lie, both to the state of North Carolina and to the federal government, because we are married, but the law doesn't allow us to file as a married couple. And that's already true. Whether or not this amendment goes to a vote or not, the statute's already there. And our legally granted marriage is not recognized under current and existing law. So it feels a little bit cruel, actually, to even consider passing an amendment to the Constitution that would enshrine bigotry in our state's laws even further.
And what's more than that, part of what's so perplexing about this is that our elected officials have been elected to serve our communities and to look out for the interests of everyone in our communities. And even though the issue of marriage equality is a really divisive one and a charged one, I think that something everyone can agree on is that we're in an economic crisis right now, and that there are people in our state, people in our cities and our counties in our state who have needs that are going unmet and who need jobs and who've been unemployed for far too long. And these are the kinds of things that we want to see our legislators focusing on. And it's just hard to fathom why they would use taxpayers' resources and the time and energy of our state to focus on something that's redundant, something that's cruel, something that harms people instead of helps people, when they could be focusing on doing things to attract jobs to North Carolina, to improve the educational system here so people are ready to be workers.
An example of that is that Jasmine and I feel like this is our home. And aside from the fact that it feels arbitrary that just by sheer geography our marriage isn't recognized under the law, and as a footnote, whether or not the law recognizes it or not, we still live together. We still consider ourselves married no matter what the law says. But as an aside from that, I attended law school in Boston, and 20% of my peers in my class identify as queer. And I'd like to think those are some incredibly talented people whom I'd like to attract here to North Carolina. And those attorneys are looking for jobs in Boston, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., New York City. It's very difficult to attract that kind of talent here to North Carolina because of the bigotry that's enshrined in our laws.
Beyond that, in addition to being hard to attract folks when we're passing laws like this, we also see that it just creates unnecessary hassles and complications for businesses that already do business here. There are national and international corporations that do business in North Carolina, and they offer equal benefits to their gay and lesbian employees. They offer domestic partner benefits because everyone can see that that's the direction that corporate culture is going in, is in the direction of equality. And an amendment like this poses an unnecessary complications for a corporation that is trying to do good business practices here, in addition to being a deterrent to new businesses coming in.
Yeah, and there are a number of public employers here, municipalities here in North Carolina that do already grant domestic partner benefits, that recognize equality and realize that it creates a positive, healthy work environment for their workers when they treat all their workers equally. And so a number of those public employees, their benefits are at risk. Because of this constitutional amendment, it would possibly make it very difficult for public employers and private employers to offer their employees who have same-sex partners benefits.
And these examples that we're rattling off, it's just one way after another way after another that an amendment like this is a distraction from the real priorities of North Carolinians. This is an important time in our state, and there's real problems that need smart solutions. And it's mind-blowing that people who have been tasked and have the opportunity to serve our state by representing us are not paying attention to those problems that need solutions and are instead trying to stoke the fires of bigotry, really. LGBT people, same-sex couples in North Carolina are one of the fastest growing demographics in our state. Same-sex couples live in every county, all 100 counties in North Carolina. I grew up in Orange County, and I can say that there's children right now in North Carolina who are growing up and they know that they're gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgender, and they're probably getting really hard messages in a lot of their communities, maybe at school, maybe at church. They're being told that they're less than, that they're a second-class citizen, maybe they're being bullied. And what we need to do as North Carolinians is make sure that those kids are hearing a very different message that says that they are equal to the child sitting next to them, and that they deserve every shot at happiness and joy in their life, and that they will be supported and loved by their community. And when the political leaders of our state are working overtime to enshrine bigotry in our Constitution, it sends precisely the opposite message. It sends the kind of message that actually fuels violence against kids like that, that fuels bullying, that fuels the hate crimes that we've seen happening from Wilmington to Asheville this summer. And I think that the people in North Carolina, the people that I grew up with as my neighbors, as my teachers, as my classmates, are good-hearted people. We may disagree on a lot of issues, but one thing I know that we agree on is wanting to treat each other right and with respect, and being kind and civil and decent to each other. And that's what the true priorities of North Carolina are. I know that in my bones from having grown up here. And I know that the people of North Carolina know that this amendment is at odds with those values.
Yeah, I'd like to think that the vast majority of people in our community are fair-minded people, and I think that's true across the state. I think one of the best arguments against this amendment that I've heard actually came from a straight person who said, if you don't support gay marriage, don't get gay married. And I think that sort of sentiment really expresses the fair-mindedness of a lot of people in this state. And I'm proud to call this place home, but I'm embarrassed by what our legislature has chosen to prioritize. I think the most recent poll we've seen is that the vast majority of North Carolina voters do not support an amendment like this. And I suppose we would see what happens on a referendum, but I truly believe that this is just a scare tactic to try to drive people to the polls to support conservative politicians. This has nothing to do with the priorities we face around the healthcare crisis and the unemployment crisis. As a gay person, as much as I would like to see our legally granted marriage recognized here in the state that we call home, I would be pleased to see our legislature focus on creating jobs for people who are out of work, providing health insurance to the uninsured, concerning themselves with the poor, of which the children are a vast majority, and instead somehow a totally redundant law that has absolutely no place in our Constitution, much less does it serve any purpose whatsoever. That's what they've prioritized and focused on. And I would like to think that a lot of voters are going to stop and think about that when they get a chance to re-elect the people who are proposing bills like this.